ゴルフクラブウエストランドでございます。皆さんもこんばんは、サンタナでございます。お休みの締めにゴルフゲームやっていきたいなと思います。このゲームは荒廃した地球でゴルフをプレイする、そういうゲームでございます。ちゃんとストーリーあるのかな。あれこれゲームはある？イントロ流す。はいはい。字幕大きめ。あら？僕が音聞こえてないだけかな？今はないところなのかな？やってみよう。あ、音出た。ウェイストランドへようこそ。僕はタクシー船が着陸した立ち入り禁止区域に向かった。
Hello, all you Martians out there. Get your turn, fix foot, soul, with a bit of that old world flavor. You're tuned to Radio Nostalgia from Mars. Breathe easy, kick back, and reminisce.
Take my hand, explain to me.
主人公は、火星に一旦移住した人ですね。なんだっけな。火星に移住したお金持ちの人々は荒れ果てた地球に危険を承知で戻ってゴルフをします。荒野に散らばるホールでは独自の短いストーリーとパズルが展開され、完璧なショットを決めることができます。破壊された残酷なモニュメント、崩れかけたショッピングモール、見捨てられたミュージアムでネオンサインや心を打つ落書きが現在のイベント、シリコンバレーの文化、人類に打撃を与えた様子を見ながらゴルフをプレイしましょう。だって。左スティックで狙いを定め、Rボタンを押して打ちます。打ってみようか。ほい。そういう感じね。ほい。あ、強すぎた。見えないが、これぐらいかな。よっ。あー。よし。僕も最近ゴルフ始めたんですけど、まあセンスがないですね。放射能は大抵は手段でやってくる。あ、後ろに何かいる。右スティックでカメラを動かします。L1 ボタンと R1 ボタン。なるほど。お、ここそこにか。あんまり高めに打って転がすっていうのはどうでしょうか。よっ。ホールインワン。アルファビル郊外。彼らがプレイするのをいつもフェンス越しから見ていた。水や危険物に注意してください。はーい。これぐらいだろ。お、ホールインワン。ぼんやりした夢。みんなジェットバッグをつけた巨大な昆虫みたいな防護服を着ていた。これ音チェックしないけど入ってるよね。大丈夫ですよね。ですですですですですです。へいへいへいへい。3つありました。 カモメさんがいいよ。あー行き過ぎた。よし、これはまあいけるでしょう。で上手、そのまま。よくね。よし、燃えた橋、彼らは僕を見つけると捕まえようとした。おお、なんだこれ。荒廃しておりますね。いいよ。ああ、まあまあまあ。ホールインワンはね、なかなか出るまで。なんだ
Wow, what a way to start the show.
ラジオだ。
And a Chochin would take my hand, her sublime take on our wonderful project called Humanity. Beautiful. Plenty more to come into Soul Show, a show packed with stories and music to remind ourselves of where we are and how far we've come.
誰も道を知らない。多分僕が汚染されていて危険だと思ったんだ。
And was a hard-hitting look back at the last days on Earth from the perspective of a shrewd businessman and loving father. Stories, memories, the good old days. Original sources, authentic tales, hope, inspiration, drama. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
I worked in oil. Broken gasoline, to be exact. It's a strange business, probably not like you would actually imagine it to be. My day started something like this. I check Reuters and my sheets. See if there's been a change in the fundamentals. See if the spread's up or down. And then when the clock strikes go, I'm on the phone. I could be calling some commercial shop in Bumble, Kansas, where little old Sue loves to know how my daughter's doing. Or I could be trying to get into the head of a powerful Russian who knows the world wants his phone number. That's when the psychology kicks in, and I go to work. If they pick up the phone, they're mine. That's the game. I started when I was 29, 30. My boss was a coked-up, perma-tanned moron who was wasted by lunch. More money than sense. Screaming at waiters because, you don't drink gin out of a glass like that. And Caesar salad is supposed to have 8 pieces. 8 pieces of chicken, you stunted fool. Stunted fool was his favorite insult. It's coming from a guy who was 5 foot and nothing. That was pretty much my life. 24/7. I traveled a lot. Meeting clients all over the world. The Amazon, the Gulf, Siberia, Central Asia, the States, Singapore, everywhere. Looking back, I can't claim that I ever would recommend that life, nor can I claim that I was ever really happy doing it. But it was fun. I mean, talk about your share of moments. There was this one girl, strange mix of Algiers and Paris, with some sprinkle of Havana, a dancer, naturally. So pretty. She'd turn a priest's head or give a nun a... Sometimes I wonder what happened to her. But we all had the same feeling. This can't last. And sure enough, we were right.
ラジオがストーリーを進
First
め
you
る
couldn't
な。
drink the
お
water.
お、
Then you couldn't eat the crops. And pretty soon we wouldn't be able to breathe the air. I remember looking at Emmy and wondering what kind of a future would she have. So I decided to do something about it. The Mars project was Plan B for planet Earth, which was most evidently...
P
Your
が
family and I had
すご
already
く多
put
い
down
ね。
roots in Tesla City by the time the great catastrophe really hit. The corporation knew my contacts in the world of drilling and refining would be useful. So I adapted my skills to something more practical. Now we are all that keeps this little planet running. Mining those Martian chemicals for the battery banks. Martian cement for the buildings. My pure little Emma has a future. When somebody sits down and writes this all up for the history books, it might just be men like me they'll be hailing as heroes. It's men like me who saved humanity. Men like me who took us further than we ever dreamt possible.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
Oh, some pretty heavy stuff. Reminds us that all kinds made it up here to Mars, but we're all in it together now. And remain creatures of the world.
ラジオを聴きながらゴルフを楽しんでるんだな、主人公
Radio
は。
nostalgia from Mars, music for the lost days of Earth.
密売品入りのコンテナ。でも今回はいつもと違ったその人が一人でプレイしてる。ぶつけてポンね。おい、上手。本当にラジオ聞きながらやってる感覚になるの。あー、入らなかった。この主人公のその進み具合とか、ゴルフの進み具合とか関係なくラジオが進んでいく。捨てられたヨットだ。もうこうなると、こんな高そうな船買っても意味ないね。地球がこうなってしまうと。そう。ああ、落ちちゃう。うおー、逆にむずいのでは。ちょっと近づけるぐらい。ダメかー。ペンに入れようと思ったらダメだな。ポン。ここはもうあのプールはイケボチャになりそうだな。越えれるでしょう。あ、銃が落ちてる。なんで地球を捨てることになったんだろうな。いいなーい。これぐらい。あー、欲しい。これぐらい。オッケーオッケー。これぐらい。あー、難しいな。丘の上のエカテリーナ。防衛兵器みたいなものが後ろに、対空砲のようなものが後ろに。惜しい。やりすぎた。これぐらい。よし。コブフェベイデオル。
Creatures of the world. Now that attracted takes us back. Stefan Milenkovic, pining for blue skies, fast musing on the games we play. Just a reminder that until further notice, there is a moratorium on all team leaders playing card and board
Monopoly
games
game.
with their teams, following an incident over a game of Monopoly in Section C. All senior section team leaders will convene for emergency counseling and anger management courses. Until then, there'll be no intersectional board game tournaments and no games with groups larger than 4 people at a time per team. In the interim, teams are encouraged to take advantage of the half ration special on OMAS,
ネオン温泉で人が上に隠しみ伝染病が
that
広がる
takes the edge off of everything. Our next caller,
火星
Yamil,
に行っても
takes us
まだな
into
お
her world of food, smells,
いろんな問題があるん
sensuality,
だな。
blue skies, and sings us
なんか
a
牛さん
personal
のこの
song
辺ピンクに光ってませんか？
Histoire,
そういうこと
mémoire, le bon vieux temps, source originale,
あ、
fable
バンカーだ。
authentique, espoir, inspiration, drame, musique,
あんまり伸びない。
radio
よっ
nostalgie de Mars.
I have nightmares.
いや
I'm happy to be alive, but I knew many who deserved to live more than I did. But this is a radio program about nostalgia, not guilt. I've been nostalgic since I was 20 when I left Havana. In Europe, I felt different. Each country has a smell. Mars doesn't. Where I come from, the smell of the ocean, mango, bananas, coconut, mama's food, ropa vieja de la abuelita, el con gris, la yuca con mojito, the most beautiful sun on Malecón,
今
the
人いた
smell
な。
of
お
my
母さんこんばん
street
は。
when the rain falls. All of that make me into the person I am. So
牛に
when I
食べられちゃう
left, I grew stronger. I experienced the world, but forever stayed incomplete. So now I'm double nostalgic. We were full of life, laughing on warm nights under blue sky, touching each other. The air filled with the
隠れてる。
smell of sweat from dancing with a Orquesta Aragon playing from an apartment. Now,
地球に
the
残った
only
人なのか
way
な。もう
I
ちょっと
can
ラジオが
feel this
ちょっとうるさく感じてる。
is by singing.
すごい変わったゲームだな。
No sé decirte cómo fue. No sé explicarme qué pasó.
キリンだ。
Pero
動
de
物たちは残ってるね。
ti me enamoré.
上手。
Fue una
レ
luz
ストランだ。
que iluminó todo mi ser.
それはどうすればいいの？
Tu risa como manantial llenó mi vida de inquietud.
お、いいんだそれで。
Fueron tus ojos
なんか食べて
o
お
tu
水飲んでんのか。
boca. Fueron tus manos o tu voz. Fue a lo
Dios.
mejor la impaciencia
トイ
de
レ。
tanto
母さんはアルビノの赤ちゃんを産んだ。それが僕だ。
tu llegada.
アルビノさんなんだね、主人
Mas
公は。
no sé, no sé decirte cómo fue. No sé explicarme qué pasó. Pero de ti
こうです。
me
Ah.
enamoré.
Слушайте радио Носталгия за Марса.
Thank you, Yamil. What a wonderful story. Reminds us that life is about so much more than just base survival.
あ、違う。
Well, living in space has always been challenging, and here's a song that pokes a little fun at living in cramped quarters. Needs no introduction. Argue all you want. It's a classic.
Take a moment, relax, and remember with radio nostalgia from Mars.
変な植物が生えてるな。よっ。
A Russian and an American work together in space. A very different sight
子供がいる。貧乏な人は火星に移住できずに地球に残ったんだね。地球って言おうとしてなぜか広島って言いかけてしまうんだよな。地元好きすぎ。ちょっとあれ入れたいな。入らんか。そういうのじゃないの。
Democratia. Don't get me started on Stalin and your talent to suffer under SARS, my friend. Your history is long. You also inflicted scars. Two astronauts argued about art. That is an international relations. Two astronauts argued. They speak in two tongues.
これは入ったとは言えない気がする。よっ。お、ああ惜しい。なあ、特にこのゲームはスコアとかじゃないんだな。本当にストーリーを楽しむゲームなんだな。ストーリーとか世界観。よし、お、やはり何かトロフィーを得たぞ。バンカー。
Светит солнце, свет Бога, как прекрасна голубая земля. Говорится, гей из Роскосмоса. Indeed, search, my friend, with home on our mind, on a mission for mankind.
ポチャるんだ。え？じゃあこっち？あー、行き過ぎ。下手くそ。よし、あー、止まってくれ。行き過ぎ。繰り返し。難しいですな。よし。そして上に行けばいいのか。どここう。むず
Musica i stari dobri dan. Radio nostalgia samasa.
Anna Churchinder and arguably the first interplanetary
これ壊すの
hit,
か。
two astronauts, and
よし。
anthem to the great evacuation.
あ
and
なんで
certainly
落
one
ち
of
る。
our most popular requests. Speaking of requests, please follow habitat protocols for sanitation. No liquids other than bodily in the main
Yes.
bin, including pee. Some of you don't like it, but all water is recycled, so pee into the funnel installed next to your toilet, please.
火星でのトイレ事情について話してる。
Speaking of pee and poop, we recently welcomed our first official little Martian to the colony, and our next caller, Sophia, tells us what it's like to be a new mother on Mars.
かわいい。ブルブルブルブルって言ってた。
It was a project I funded from the very beginning.
違う。う
I
わ
knew it had potential and I trusted the amazing team working on it. As angel investors, my husband and I got early placements in the
Yes.
flagship. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to further human survival in our solar system. Speaking of the human project, I have some exciting news. Just a week ago, we welcomed our baby boy into the
ー。
world.
うわ
Words cannot express how overjoyed we are at welcoming little
ー。
Maxim.
うわ
Putting him to bed reminds me of my parents. From our window here in Tesla City, we can see the Earth, tiny enough to fit in Maxim's hand. It pains me that my child might never experience the beauty of my home in the Hamptons.
Yo.
The nature,
Da.
coastline, the old lighthouse, and the
Yo.
food, the houses of our friends,
Yes.
our evening parties, full of life compared to this barren, rugged terrain. I send my little Martian to sleep
火星
with a
に移住
lullaby
した
my
のが
mother sang for me.
良かったかどうかわかんないな、このラジオ聞いてると。
To retain at least on a rudimentary level my mother tongue. She sang like this.
よ
Shushti, shushti, bamboo solis, por el mocha prozora.
お星さま
Spuszta na
き
grad, za nebeski
見てる
spodola. Noce ticho spuszta na grad,
七夕の歌
za nebeski spodola.
自撮り棒を持ったアフロディーテ。僕は猫やネズミ虫を食べながらいるの。
Thank you, Sophia, for that uplifting news and beautiful song. Life always finds a way. Just as precious as a new life is the water that sustains it. You may have noticed that it doesn't rain here on Mars, so another friendly reminder that showers are strictly limited to 30 seconds each, with no exceptions.
あっとんかわからんが。
Corporate is looking
あ、
into
これ
extending
押す
this
押すんじゃない
timeframe,
か。ボタン
but
じゃない
is
これ。
meeting resistance from Section BC who want lab rat urine to be excluded from the water recycling program, which would actually reduce allocated shower times to 27 seconds. Want to say in this? Join our sectional weekly meetings and vote while sipping on a relaxing tube of OMAS. Feels good, as it should.
Radio nostalgia from Mars.
赤いボタンでしょあれ。押したい。あら。
High speed on the autobahn, like spaceship boats around the sun. A diver's breath in the deep blue sea.
Yeah.
Bubbles like your thoughts of me.
よし。
Make up
お、
sex on
なんだなんだ。
Sunday's day. Like an airplane on a
エイリアンがいるけど。行ってみる？
melts like ice cream in the sun. And doesn't fool anyone.
エイリアンとなんだあれ？サメ？
Like a desperate man taking his chance. Quick as a kiss at your first dance. Keep your eyes open and don't you blink. You'll miss the boat before it sinks. Slide passes quickly like buzz like a bomb. Like a child in the morning.
その原理はちょっとね、ちょっといきません。上に登ってるか。
The time will come.
これ上の窓からパリンと音。あら、
Passes quickly.
強い服を着てるね。これぐらいだ。あ、行かんでくれ。よし。あ、ミロのヴィーナスがスマホ持ってるな。そういうの好きです。いいよいいよ。お、お、よーし。バルコニーのベルトシュメルツ。もう長い間人には飽きなかった。
Like a tiger's breath in a deep
blue sea passes like your thoughts of me. Make up six on summer's day. Like an airplane on a
水一旦離れ
That's
て
like I scream in the sun. Doesn't feel anymore.
あ
Like a desperate
そうちゃうのか
man taking his
じゃあ
chance.
上か
Quick as they say.
よしよしよしよしおおなるほどもうどんどん上にってことね
Don't you blink, you'll miss the boat before it sinks. Slide passes quickly like like a child.
うそー今の悔しいなよしよしよし
Close and don't let your
あーこれ難しい
time will come when nothing is left. 'Cause
これぐらい
life passes quickly.
It flies
You're home away from home. Radio nostalgia
始まった
from Mars.
by. Life passes quickly
よしよしよしよし
indeed.
よしよしよし
Another blast from the past, reminding us to savor each moment as it flies by. Speaking of savoring things, the Health and Well-being Department would like us to remind you that the popping and fizzing noise your dried food makes when you're adding water is perfectly normal and does not mean it has gone off or is contaminated. The Health and Wellbeing Department would also like to take this moment to remind you to take your bone density pills twice a week now,
密度の薬
as it was discovered the original dose is off by a factor of 2. Right, on with the show. Music and dancing have always been a mainstay of stress relief and letting go. Our next caller, Merva, recalls her teenage clubbing days with vivid memories of awkward first kisses and a life-altering club experience invoking
上手
a philosophical epiphany.
Stories, memories, the good old days, original sources, authentic tales, hope, inspiration, drama, radiant
Yosh.
nostalgia from Mars.
あ誰かいる誰かいる
So, when I was a kid in Vienna, in high school, we used to learn all the German poets, like Best Friends,
Goethe
and Schiller. But the first poet that actually spoke to me was Heinrich
登
Heine.
れんのんかそ
I knew
こ
a couple of Heine's poems by heart that are now buried somewhere deep in my mind.
いろんな人の人生をラジオで聞きながらゴルフをするという余生を送っている主人公
Until today. So, just to fast forward to college, just a couple of years before the Great Catastrophe, I was walking around Berlin with a group of friends coming from a house party. Phew, I still remember that apartment smelling of potatoes. Yes, because we always made pommes and drank schnapps
あ、オッケーオッケー落ちてくれたら
before
ここからまたできるか
heading out. And after that, I remember passing by Alexanderplatz
向こうに行くんだな
on that very, very hot night. And next to me was a guy I liked. We kissed before, but I can't say I really remember that. Probably from all the drinking, or maybe he was just a bad kisser. But I can still feel this sticky, sweaty, and very ambivalent feeling of us holding hands. Yeah, anyways, we popped some pills and entered our techno church that, well, now when I think back, I visited more often than my college. And I remember the beat in my chest and all these young bodies moving in this industrial space. I used to love dancing
それは失敗です
and counting beats in techno songs, but one song was very strange. It just went repetition, 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 and then this female vocal would creep out of nowhere.
上手
And then suddenly I felt very dizzy, so I
ラジオ
sat
の
on
字
the
幕
ground
見たい
and
な
held my knees closely to my chest. It was some sort of like, like protective instinct. I was like an animal, and I felt cold sweat dripping down my neck. Ugh. And I'm sure my guy thought I was completely crazy. And then out of nowhere, The hyena lines clearly came to me. I sat there motionless, surrounded by the ugly, hypnotic, delirious atmosphere, and no effort to recall Heine's lines. They were just there, planted in my head. Wilde, düstere Zeiten dröhnen heran und der Prophet, der eine neue Apokalypse schreiben wollte, musste ganz neue Bestien erfinden. Und zwar so erschreckliche, dass die älteren johannischen Tiersymbole dagegen nur sanfte Täubchen und Amoretten wären. Die Götter verhüllen ihr Antlitz aus Mitleid mit den Menschenkindern, ihren langjährigen Pfleglingen und vielleicht zugleich auch aus Besorgnis über das eigene Schicksal. And yeah, 2 years later, I ended up here, on Mars.
That does bring back memories of university days and sweaty club nights. Earthly hedonism at its finest. For the record, corporate does not endorse or advocate the use of psychedelic drugs, and reminds you, dear listeners, that Class A drugs are just as illegal here on Mars as they were on Earth. Okay, disclaimer out of the way, we actually have a surprise for Mirva. We tracked down that weird song in her head and dug it out of the archives for all to hear. Grab a tube of Omas and enjoy the ride while sipping on pure calm.
The deepest tunes, the warmest memories. Radio nostalgia from Mars.
どこだ？まあでももうちょっとだ。一回飛ばす思いっきり。良いのでは？もっと奥へ。よしよーし、ここ難しかったな。アルファビルのリス、オレンジの玉を打っている人たちに偶然出会うまでは。他にもいるのかな。僕みたいに地球に帰ってきてゴルフをしている人たちが。リスだ。オークパークフェスティバル。あ、リス持ってくでしょこれ。持ってった。よー上手。で池があるでしょ。なのでこうです。ギリギリすぎ。向こうにもリスが。これぐらい。あ、まあまあまあまあまあまあ。上手。この音楽あんまり好きじゃないな。あ、ダメなんだそこ。なくなっちゃう。ああ、なるほどね。葉っぱもオレンジだから分かんなくなっちゃうのかな。だって人もいたし 100% 地球人が火星に行ってるわけじゃないんだよね。おーっとっと、ネオンもついてるし。もうスタンバってるなリスが。俺ぐらい。あいつよね。これ難しいな。急に難しいな。よっ。これぐらい。ああ。良いのでは。オッケーオッケーオッケー。 あ乳母車が物悲しいな。イエーイ。後方ビルのホップ。防護服を着た火星人たちはサンプルを集める。あまりちゃんと日本語訳なされてない気もしますね。ムビル。ノリビルならぬムビル。という感じでございますね。なるほど。これ飛ぶのか。ああ、風に乗るんだ。まあそんな感じかな。ドラゴンの死骸に見えた。こうやって火星のラジオを聞きながら地球で防護服着てるってことはもう汚染されまくってるはずだからね、地球は。地球でゴルフがいい趣味かと聞かれたらこの世界ではあんまりな感じがするけれども、というゲームでございました。ラジオを聞きたくなるね以上でございます。お疲れ様でした。バイバーイ。